Welcome to our podcast, Teach, Assess, Learn from the Center for Teaching and Assessment of Learning. This is Dr. Sophie Leblanc, postdoctoral researcher at CETL.
And I'm Dr. Rose Moravchik, the Assistant Director of CETL.
Our episode today is on constructive dialogue in difficult moments.
What we're here to do is help you frame your engagement with students before incendiary moments enter the classroom. Given what's been going on with the national climate around the election, or in the event of controversial speakers being invited to campus, we understand that students are going to come to your class being upset, full of anxieties, difficult conversations that they want to have when they enter your classroom.
And we know, like many of you, we also have the feeling of, but we don't have time in our classroom to address that.
Never enough time.
We have so much to cover. We don't have 20 minutes to give to that. But we want to acknowledge the fact that students who are upset, coming to class upset, are not going to be focused on the materials of the class. They are not going to be in the right frame of mind to learn. So I think it's really important for us to address those issues as they come up.
And these are going to be uncomfortable conversations. We'll talk about that over the course of our podcast. But we want to draw your attention to the fact that research is showing us from higher education that if you privilege comfort in the classroom of the dominant social group over creating an environment of safety, you're actually impeding the learning outcomes of all of your students. So we want to encourage you to take seriously that feeling of inclusion and safety in your classroom will contribute significantly to the outcomes that you've set for your class. So we're asking you to take a little bit of time, but in the end, you're going to have every student achieve more.
Right. And sometimes I know that for me, I was teaching political science classes. So it was kind of an easy segue to go into more controversial issues.
Right.
And sometimes our disciplines just don't seem to lend themselves so well. But here we want to reiterate or really emphasize the fact that we are not asking you to be expert on the topic at hand.
That's right.
What we are asking you as instructor is to model a respectful dialogue with your students.
And the truth is that in any course you're teaching, supporting student communication skills is always going to be a basic cornerstone of any of your learning outcomes. So regardless of the topic that you teach, think about these conversations and modeling these conversations as a way to reinforce the communication skills you're building in all of your students.
And I think it's important to also acknowledge that usually those conversations are uncomfortable, as Rose explained before. Yeah. And I think it's really fine to admit to your students that, it's really uncomfortable to me, but let's discuss it. Let's see how we can discuss respectfully when we are uncomfortable with a topic.
That's right. All of the modeling postures that you're going to take in this class are ways to show your students that you can be uncomfortable and you can still engage meaningfully, purposefully, and without going at the level of person versus person or debate on topics that are uncomfortable. It is possible to do that, and you're able to show them that.
And so we have this episode of the podcast that is here to start you up on thinking about those issues so that, when they arise in class, you have some idea about ways that you could react. But it's also very important to remember that you can always step back.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're caught off guard, if something happens that you were not expecting, you can also just take a step back and ask students to do an activity that doesn't involve speaking for just 1 or 2 minutes so that you can collect your thought, so that students can collect their thoughts and start thinking about the issues at hand.
And one of the options you have, if you want to give your students a few minutes, like Sophie said, to write their thoughts down, you could ask them, write on a piece of paper in the next 60 seconds what it is about this event or this topic that's really upsetting you. Have them do it anonymously. And then one suggestion might be to collect those anonymous responses, shuffle them up, and then have students try and read the experiences, the feelings of their peers, and paraphrase, communicate that to others. You're asking them to take a little bit of perspective. This is another major goal of a lot of our initiatives here at UD to engage in perspective taking, but it gives a small space for students to get some of those feelings out in a way that isn't confrontational. And we're not asking anyone to engage in that kind of confrontation.
Right. And during that dialogue, some students might say something that is disrespectful to some people. And what is really important here is to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
So you don't attack them, you don't point them out in the classroom, but instead you say, well, where did you hear that?
What Sophie's getting at is this question of metacognition. Push your students to that next level. They're going to say, oh, well, I heard or I felt. Ask them, where is it that you heard that? The way that you can think about this modeling for yourself is to ask your students to rephrase things if they've used an offensive term, if they've even used a term in a way that you're not clear about. Ask them to rephrase, ask them to frame their comments so that you get some more context from them personally, and ask them those metacognitive questions. What evidence do you have to support that claim? Where did you read that? Those kinds of guiding questions.
And here, we've been talking about the importance of doing something when students are upset because, students are not going to be in the right frame of mind to learn, as we said before. But I think it's important to remember that you should not do nothing. So we want you to do something. Because moments of discomfort won't be solved by inaction. And I think, Rose, there was a very interesting research that you read recently about that.
There have been a couple of national studies. One of them, which came out of the Higher Education Research Institute, demonstrated that when students in any discipline, so across the sciences, across the humanities, were challenged to engage in difficult conversations in their classrooms, all of those students reported, almost all of them, reported that they were able to apply those models to something that happened in the real world. So they really were able to have a real world impact for these moments of difficult conversation in the classroom.
And it's so important for our classes to have real impact in the world outside for our students. And that's really a very great moment for students to have a good discussion, right? That is respectful.
And to see that it's possible, no matter how upset people are in the classroom, to have those great real moments of engagement with their peers. That's what you'll be able to offer them.
Right. So those are kind of our tips for that short episode. We have so many more resources on our website.
Handouts, slide presentations even, lots of stuff for you to download.
The website is ctl.udel.edu, ctl.udel.edu. Rose, there's also, I think, a teaching and learning conversation.
Yes. If you're interested in continuing this topic about hot moments in the classroom, we have a TLC coming up November 1st. That'll be at noon in the Faculty Commons, and we will have a structured discussion, share some strategies, share some moments where this happened to us in real life in our classes, and learn from our peers about how to better model this respectful dialogue for our students.
And that really comes at the right time because it's just 1 week before the election.
That's right. Get prepared.
So that concludes it for us. Thank you so much for listening, and up until next time.